Are there any of you that are from the March seminar? When they shut us down? Okay. We have lots and lots and lots of material to cover. And to say that the seminar has been restructured vis-a-vis Corona would be a understatement of biblical or Quran proportion. We restructured it not in the way that I learn, but in the way you kids really don't learn. So the seminar that you're going to receive the next several days is default. Because default meaning I don't get it. I don't get it. But apparently you all get it. So as I used to say to my mother when I was growing up, how come everybody can't be like me? And she used to say, oh, God, Dan, thank God that they can't be like you. And if I've asked my first and more current wife of decades, why can't they all be like me? And they both say the same thing, thank God. But so this is default learning for me. This is negative learning. So it's probably killing my brain cells, what we're going to go through the next few days. But it is apparent, especially since we've given 2 Corona seminars, full seminars already, how fucking effective it is. And even though I'm not a believer in case studies, I don't believe in that. For those of you that have graduate degrees, you probably studied by case studies. Our children went to graduate school, studied by case studies. This is the closest that we're ever going to get to case studies other than the hardcore that we give in December, which is case study based, driven for 30 or 35 case studies. I was looking at your homework, which I want to cover your homework when we're not on camera. So, but based on the initial view of the homework, a lot of you got it. In other words, a lot of you have done homework before you got here, which you were supposed to. We gave a whole list of stuff that you should read, a whole list of links, etc., etc. For the most part, most of the kids either have a cursory look at it or don't look at it at all. And of course, that's how they live their life. Jack Welch, who I didn't know personally, but who I believe, or I know in my heart, was the greatest CEO of the last probably 75 or 100 years, used to say he wanted to be not the smartest guy in the room. Well, the truth of the matter is Jack was the smartest guy almost every meeting he ever attended, notwithstanding his PhD in engineering or anything like that. But I fall under the same category without as many degrees as Jack, but I'm almost always the smartest guy in the room. I say tongue-in-cheek, that won't be too difficult in this room. But in rooms where there's a lot of high-performance people, it is. But I was always the most prepared. And I was normally the most prepared because I had a chip in my shoulder until I was about late 30s, until I got rich, because I didn't go to Harvard, I didn't go to Oxford, I didn't have multiple degrees from a lot of great institutions of higher learning. So I would over-prepare. Sundays in my week, somebody asked me about if we were going to discuss the weekly schedules of high-performance people or myself. We do later on in the week. But Sundays, the entire day from the time, this is before, the entire day from when I woke up to when I went to sleep, I prepared for the other 6 days of the week. I was micro, and I'm telling you, that's not the way to do it. But I was, I don't know if I was deathly afraid, but I didn't want to not be able to answer a question. I now realize that was overkill. But that's where you are now. Most of you know more about me than I know. Some of you have done research on the web about me for not days, not weeks, not hours, not months, but years. And I'm here to tell you there is no correlation whatsoever whether you studied me and or QLA for 1 month, 1 year, or 10 years in success. None. Zero. The two longest success stories we have are 12 and 13 years respectively. Both Germans. 12 and 13 years they studied me. And yet 4 of the 5 top Hall of Famers I have are German. So we've got 2 that took 12 and 13 years respectively, and we've got 4 of the last 5 and 25 years of the guys that have made the big bucks are German, but they're all German. But once the Germans get it, they get it. It's unfortunate that it takes so fucking long to get it, though. Now, this is the 3rd seminar in the Corona era, as it says here. Albert Einstein said a long time ago, if you want to live a happy life, I'm not sure what he meant by happy, I think successful life, tie it to a goal, not to people or objects. And heretofore, most of us, myself included, up until maybe 20, 25 years ago, I tied it to people. I want to be like him. I want this, I want that, instead of just the goal. When we talk about goals and affirmations and how I had a goal to live in a castle on an island, and 17 months later, I moved in here. 1 million permutations had to occur for that to happen because I didn't have any money to buy this. But of course, this wasn't here then. This is the greatest bit of serendipity, luck, good fortune that I built this piece of shit because I was going to tear it down at least 3 times over the last 5 years. I was going to build a swimming pool, a spa. But if I'd done that, we couldn't have Corona, the Corona era. We are perfectly set up for Corona. Now, what we're going to do after Corona, I don't know, but we're perfectly set up for Corona because we can do spacing. Everybody's got their own toilet, their own bathtub, their own, all that stuff. But it was a goal. This estate was a goal. Now, heretofore, and I alluded to it in ranting and raving last night before dinner, we're suffering what I call tragic optimism in the world. We're hoping for the best vis-a-vis Corona. And we are not really planning for the worst, i.e. we're going to another lockdown here in the UK, effective tomorrow. Now, we're considered teaching here, so we don't have to worry about that. They're not going to, unless the rules change again, we won't suffer that what happened to the March group from when the police came and shut us down back in March. But Corona's here. And as long as Corona's here, that's good for us. It's great for us before Corona, but it's even better with Corona because people are afraid. And somebody should benefit, and why not us? Now,
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth! Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg?
You little fucking weenies, no. You can't handle the fucking truth. You've only scraped the truth going through my website. You're gonna get the balls-ass fucking gut-wrenching truth here. That most of you will fail. Even with the special sauce you think you're gonna get here. 99.9% of everything we're going to talk about this week is free on my website. There's no new revelations here. None. One of you that I had one-on-one time yesterday with, you said, that's not how I learn best. He was alluding to the fact he learns best by being there with the person. 99.9% of all the people that have used the QLA model successfully, I've never met. I would know if they floated down through the ceiling, I'd probably believe them. I'd ask for ID though. I'd ask for ID even if they floated through the ceiling. But you're here for another reason. You're here for another reason. And that reason normally is because lack of self-esteem, lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence, and I can go down the list, right? And again, I beat it all week. And who do you have to hold accountable to that ugly fact, or who's responsible? Your parents. And normally it's one parent more than another because very few people have are raised equally by 2 parents. Normally one is out working, blah, 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 bullshit. You've heard all this. This is not new. But for the truth of the matter is, and what Tom Cruise is alluding to in this screaming and ranting and raving exchange with Jack Nicholson, is he wants answers. You want answers. That's why you're here. But you've already been given the answers, but subconsciously you don't like what you read. Subconsciously, you don't like what you read. Subconsciously, you don't like what you heard on the tapes. For years and years and years and years, it was difficult for people to relate to, QLA, because I'm not a Dan Peña. I'm not an alpha male. I'm all kind of bullshit, right? And then now, after decades of producing successes, Allah willing, some successes in this room, you now realize that 98% of all the high-performance people in the world are introverts, which I'm certainly not. 98% of all the high-performance people in the world lack self-esteem and lack self-confidence. That certainly doesn't cover me. And we're going to talk, a couple of you have young kids and asked about raising young kids. And we talk about that. And we talk about the book that by serendipity my mother picked up in 1946 in the Reader's Digest form. And the Reader's Digest form is a condensed form. As she was going out of the bonds market, you know how they have a point of price or whatever you call it when you buy gum and shit at the register? There was a Reader's Digest of the book, Dr. Spock's book on raising kids in 1946. Since 1946 until he died in 1995, it was the second most published book in history behind the Bible. 55 million copies. 55 million copies. And I was raised with that book. If my mother was sick or didn't go to the fucking market, I don't know. But nobody in this room was raised with that book. I've never had anybody in this seminar that their parent, in 27 and a half years, that their parents used that book as a foundation to raise their children. Yet it sold 55 million copies. But when you look at it, 55 million since 1946, we've got 7.6 or 7.7 billion people on the earth now. It's not impossible to believe that fact. But you're going to hear the truth. How it resonates with you and how it resonates with the last group or how it will resonate with the next group is depending on you and how you were taught. My parents, especially my father, always told me, it's not what happens to you in life, and Dan, it's how you interpret what happens to you in life. And I've had a lot of shit happen to me, and somehow I always thought it was good. Even when, gee, Dan, Jesus Christ, like I've just had tragic news about some deaths to people that are, one very close to me, and one who helped me get started in my career. And I've always looked at it, well, fuck, what can I learn from this? I don't go through that process. Now, Dan, so-and-so just died, what can I learn from this? But that's how I process information. Whereas you don't process information that way. And that's why accountants, lawyers, and I went to the litany of people that it's harder for, because you're educated in a different way. This is not a linear deal. This is not linear. This is not 2 plus 2 equals 4. This is 2 to the 50th power times 2 to the 5,000th power. It's geometric. And for those of you that have never been around high performers, and for those of you that have never been through or part of a high performance team, you don't know what I'm talking about. Most people in this room, I'm the closest thing that vis-a-vis social distancing, that you've been to a high performance person in your life, other than maybe you were on a university basketball team or a college wrestling team or something like that, where you had one guy and or one gal who was a super high performer. Which says volumes if you've never been around a high performance person. If you work for General Electric and you never met Jack Welch, that's tragic. I know if I'd been at General Electric, I would have met the little shit. Just as when I was with the Onassis people, I met Konstantin Gratsos. I made it my endeavor, my goal to meet the guy, and he ultimately became my mentor and was my mentor for many, many years. But I've always seeked out, some people would say, trouble. Your parents, when they sent you to school the first day, if you don't remember, I'll remind you, stay out of trouble, eat your lunch, keep your clothes clean, Well, I think every parent, normally the mother, is giving that talk to the kid when she walks him to school. in the school that I went to, the grammar school, the very grammar school I tried to kill my teacher in, 10, 12 years later, I still remember holding onto my mom's finger like this and walking to school. Now, I used to think the school was like 4 or 5 miles away, 3 blocks. But when you're a little kid, and I was never that little, 3 blocks, and so, but I didn't keep my head down. I didn't do all the aforementioned things that you would as a loving parent normally, a loving, nourishing parent normally. Normally, the mom, not always, but normally, I didn't do any of that shit. Because kids don't do what you tell them to do, they do what they see you do. And I saw my dad a fucking superhero. Like Superman, which he was. So I wanted to emulate Superman, so I did a lot of stupid, in hindsight. Of course, hindsight's 20/20. For those of you that have ever drunk to excess, you knew how you were going to feel the next day. If you didn't, you were a fucking moron, okay? But you drank anyway. This normally is associated with younger people, but some of you are still young enough to drink stupidly. Now, I've never done drugs to excess, so I don't know what that feels like. Although I had my first marijuana cookie a year and a half ago. I didn't know it was a marijuana cookie. And we went out to dinner. I was drinking it with red wine and the sweet, and we went out to dinner. Vinica, for those of you that have talked to Vinica. We were in Amsterdam, which getting a marijuana cookie is not that difficult in Amsterdam. And the food tasted, God, I ate 2 servings of bread. They had to bring butter 3 times. I mean, what's that? The water even tastes good. I couldn't understand it. And so Vinica and Sally started laughing. What's so goddamn funny? And then it dawned on me that the cannabis in the cookie, and I go, fuck, I'd weigh 500 pounds for sure. Maybe you get used to it. So I don't know what taking too many drugs it feels like, but I certainly do vis-a-vis alcohol. Now, we all know that I've created millions to hundreds of billions. Okay. And if you're looking to create money, I don't know how anybody on the planet even remotely is interested in listening to anybody else. But in my case, and it's been my case since I was a little kid, they shoot the messenger and they never receive the message. They shoot the messenger. I'm the messenger. Okay. Now there's a lot of messengers other than me, but they shoot the messenger. And they never receive the message. But there's no other game in town. And as I commented last night, the other gurus, and God bless them, everybody deserves the right to make a living. As long as they're not hurting somebody, is what I've said all along. But most of the other guys talk about revenues that they created, top line. They don't talk about equity they created. And there's no comparison. There's no comparison. It's like having a house that's worth $1 million, and when you sell it, you make $50,000. To me, you made $50,000. The $1 million is irrelevant. And I've been in the business for 27 plus years and creating equity and creating generational wealth in 3 to 7 years. 7 years if you fuck it up like a normal person. 3 years if you really get everything right. Of course, for some it's taken 10, 12, 13 years too. Those are not my case studies that I share. But notwithstanding this, you still do other stuff. There's people in this room that from now to the end of the year will attend another seminar. Not mine. There are people in this room that will read somebody else's book. Not mine. There are people in this room that will listen to podcasts. And you ask yourself, why? Well, I know why. But 15, 20 years ago, I didn't understand why. I didn't understand the human psyche as well as I do now. Because you're weak. And you're looking for a shortcut. And you really believe that there are shortcuts. And you really believe that there are tips. There aren't any. And as Andrew Carnegie said over 100 years ago, if the person, the you, needs motivation, he's not worth having. Another way of saying that, if you can't self-motivate, that almost every day I get an email, oh, I needed that kick in the ass. These are people I've never met. If you need a kick in the ass, you came to the wrong seminar. If you need a kick in the ass, there's a lot of things about you don't like. The Hall of Fame kids, which you can't see anymore because it's in the other room. And by the way, as I said last night, I love this new setup. The Hall of Fame kids, I didn't have to motivate anybody. Not last seminar, but the seminar before last. I went through all the Hall of Fame kids to think back upon my relationship with them. And every single one, to a man or a woman, I didn't have to motivate. Now that speaks volumes. Not one single one. Now there's a difference between motivating and getting them back on the playing field. Because a number of them straight off the playing field, like in the famous scene of Forrest Gump when he's running the wrong way in the football field. I've had a number of those guys and gals. And I got them back and they finally scored, so to speak, and then they're on the Hall of Fame. But vis-a-vis having to motivate them, not a one. And as Andrew Carnegie said about 120 years ago, there's 4 reasons for success. Financial motive must prevail, 1. Number 2, financial motive must prevail. Number 3, financial motive must prevail. And number 4, financial motive must prevail. Money talks and bullshit fucking walks. That's it. There is no other. Financial motive must prevail. Now, I knew that when I was 5 years old, in the hood. Financial motive must prevail. And now, of course, we have human resources, which beg to differ with me. And they'll talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is horseshit. And that you need to be loved, which is horseshit. Mongolian ponies, which are arguably the strongest racing ponies in the world, they have 2 characteristics, and this is according to Mongol history or folklore. 1, they ride until they die, and 2, you don't have to cuddle them like other horses. You cuddle British horses, American, you cuddle, you'd be nice. Mongolian, they treat like mushrooms. They keep them in the dark and shit on them. They're a horse. Now, here I am, a person that I cry when I see dogs hurt, but I mean, I'm much more empathetic or sympathetic, which I don't have for humans, for animals. But there's no cuddling here. And the reason there was no cuddling, one of the primary reasons, is I've never been cuddled by a high-performance person in my fucking life. I was against hugging and kissing 50 years ago. Unless you've got big tits and you're blonde and you're on your back, don't fucking touch me. I hope we never go back to cuddling and kissing and all that shit. I'll be happy as fucking Larry. Now, I've said for a long, long time that the world's through. It's over, and that's why Jeff and Elon are going to Mars. But Stephen Hawking is a great scientist who just recently passed away. 14 years ago said, Hawking posed an open question on the internet. In a world that is in chaos politically, socially, and environmentally, how can the human race sustain another 100 years? Amen. And we're worse off now than we were when he said that. We're not going to be here as we see it today 100 years from now. We're through. Why not get rich in the meantime? Now, we all know the world's going to end in 3.7 billion years when we're sucked in by the sun. But even I won't be alive in 3.7 billion years. The world as we know it, the Romans had their day. A lot of these the pharaohs had their day. We had their day. We had a great run as Homo sapien. But we're running out of runway. And anybody that doesn't think that is delusional. Now, about 10 days ago, they had a public offering called Snowflake. And I went online and I said, I hope I'm wrong. When I say that, I know I'm right. I hope I'm wrong. But is this the top of the stock market? Is this it? And it was it. Snowflake, the greatest IPO in the last 25 years. It came out at 150 times future sales, not earnings, not cash flow. The top of the market, the greatest IPO in the history of the market for the last 20, 25 years, and the market has collapsed since then. I said, is this irony or am I wrong? Meaning I know I was right. And what's happened? The last seminar I showed an ad, which I'm going to show a little later on, the British Army. And it goes, if you're this, or even a snowflake, we'll take you. That's repugnant to a veteran like myself. That's fucking repugnant. Of course, it's British, the British television is doing it, but it'll be next in the U.S. Now, when I was 4 years old or so, in that picture in front of my house in East LA, the hood, I had no goals other than not to get beat up. And I was a pretty tough little kid. And that was it. And to make sure I didn't get in trouble or thrown out of school, otherwise my dad had beat me. If my father was still alive, he'd be 102 this year. My mother would have been 99. They would both tell you the only goal we had for our son, Danny, was to keep him alive till the age of reason. Keep me alive till the age of reason. And I pushed that envelope. So for a guy that was in that house to be here, in and of itself is a quantum leap. I told somebody last night, we were so poor, we had a possum for a dog. That's a Trumpism, a little bit of exaggeration. But we were poor. We were poor. And if I was going to be the first person to finish university, I would have never gone back and finished university because it didn't do me any fucking good whatsoever. All it did was take a couple years. Now, because of where I came from and because my dad was a superhero, I've done crazy shit in my life since I'm a little older than that picture of me standing there with my little guns on my hip. Because I wanted to be seen as a man by my father. And so I did a lot of crazy shit. I shouldn't be here. I should be dead easily. 15, 20 times I should be dead. And for those of you, when you go back and you look at your weekly reports, when you get the format in a couple of days, and it says, what have you done to scare yourself? Just go back to the Dan Does the Extreme on my website. There's 25 or 30 things that you can use as a benchmark to scare yourself. It's not likely any of you will do any of them. But I'm still alive. But as part and parcel of me being alive and have gone through the crazy shit that I did, I'm busted up pretty good. I'm busted up pretty good. Those are some of the artificial parts in me. Just some. But I wouldn't trade one of them for whatever I did. 3 or 4 of them I almost cashed it in. Because I've always stepped into the gunfire. I've always stepped into the breach, as have almost all the other high-performance people we're going to talk about. They stepped into the breach. They didn't run away. And what have you been taught to do? They didn't necessarily tell you, run away, son, but you turned the other way. So if you've heard that since you're 2, 3, 4, 5, stay out of trouble, right? Blah, 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 blah. And what do? It's part of your DNA. And if you're second, third, fourth generation of stay out of trouble, it's locked into your DNA. Now, for those of you that say I don't have a heart, there's a picture of it. I just went through a comprehensive physical. It's like my MOT for being 75, where I was down in London taking all these tests and all my bloods. And to say that I am twisted steel and panther piss would be a fucking understatement of biblical proportion. You will not see the other gurus at 75 looking, sounding, being like me. Every one of those tests I passed with flying colors. They wanted to fuse both my wrists. They say my wrists are broken, busted up, torn, ligaments, bones. They want to fuse them. But when you fuse your wrists, other than having trouble wiping your ass, you have problems. But I decided to live with my arthritic wrists, busted up wrists, as long as I can before I have them fused, if ever. But other than that, I'm in terrific physical condition. But just like my health, I work at it. Just as QLA, I still work 50, 60 hours a week, which I don't consider 50, 60 hours of work a week because I love what I do. I have deluded myself. I have convinced myself, I have bullshitted myself that I enjoy bringing you across the goal line, which is a lie because I know it's a lie. But I've been saying it now 27 years. I enjoy. What I really enjoy is the numbers you produce for me. And I have little time for those of you that aren't going to produce any fucking numbers for me. Why did I do away with the mentor program? Some of you were sucked into the vortex, the QLA vortex, by the free mentor program. Stupid, low self-esteem dipshits that you are. We did away with it because when we ran the numbers for 10 years, and I'm not a spreadsheeting motherfucker either, there was no direct correlation, none, with the year-long, 6-month, whatever it was, free mentor program and the Hall of Fame. None. Zero. In fact, Sally would say there was an opposite correlation. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but what there is a correlation is the people that get it first, vis-a-vis the homework, there is a correlation to the Wall of Fame. The sooner the shoe drops, or the penny drops, or whatever, however the saying is, as soon as it clicks with you, as soon as it resonates with you, then there is a direct correlation to the Hall of Fame. And Hall of Fame, by Hall of Fame, I mean earning or creating tens, if not hundreds of millions, or even billions. There is a correlation to that. We've had people in this seminar that got it the first 5 hours sitting in the audience. A guy that got it almost instantaneous was Klaus Kleinfeld, the former CEO of Siemens. He got it, boom, like that. And then there's the other end of that continuum, the 12 and 13 years. The 13 years was an astrophysicist that worked for NASA. It took him 13 years to figure it out. But once he figured it out, he created hundreds of millions. But all those tests say that I'm twisted steel and panther piss. Twisted steel and panther piss. I hadn't had anybody examine my balls, my scrotum in a long time. Normally I like a female doctor doing that, but I had a male doctor in London. It wasn't to say that it was a negative turn-on would be another understatement. But I also like, when I have a colonoscopy, I like a girl ramming the shit up my ass. Now, see, I say things you wouldn't even dare to think. Why? Because I don't give a fuck what you think. And you give a fuck what people think. And you give a fuck what people think. And you give a fuck what people think. And that's why I'm up here and you're down there. If you think Elon or Ray Kroc in his day and these guys gave a shit what you think, you're delusional. Do you think Donald Trump gives a fuck what you think? No. Now, I want to dispel some myths. Dottie, I did not date. She's the oldest living Marine. She's 107. She just turned 107 the day before yesterday. I did not date Dottie, as some smart asses have commented. I'd love to have met her. She's still alive. The oldest living Marine, a gal, 107 on the 19th of September. She's from Pennsylvania. So, now, this is for the YouTubers and for yourself. We went back and we're looking at how the guys during the Corona era, the ones that have succeeded in the last 5 months, arguably 6 months, as opposed to the ones that haven't succeeded. And it's clear and distinct, the people that build a QLA routine, it's clear that they have succeeded beyond their contemporaries. And the QLA routine starts for the QLA for Dummies, which we produced about 3 years ago, which is on the site free. It's the formula, how do you become a QLA bot? And the formula is to build a routine for yourself. Starting, and we talk about that later on in the week, from the beginning when you wake up in the morning to when you go to sleep. The last thing I do every single night for about 50 plus years is I fall asleep saying my prayers, which are right after my goals and affirmations. And if I get through my prayers once and I'm still awake and I go through the second, I normally fall asleep about a third through my prayers the second time. I can't remember consciously ever me getting through the prayers twice and starting the third time. I say a lot of prayers. But that's my last routine. Bit of my routine, I should say. And when we talk about goals and affirmations, your goals should be said, as we have people say their goals and affirmations 20 times a day. I only did it twice a day. I did it when I got up in the morning. I don't do them when I get up in the morning anymore. And when I go to sleep at night, I still do that. But it's building the routine. Okay, YouTube, we'll see you later.